chapter 80 of Desire of Ages, page 769, it says, "At last Jesus was at rest. The long day of shame and torture was ended. As the last ray of the setting sun ushered in the Sabbath, the Son of God laid in quietude in Joseph's tomb. His work completed, his hand folded in peace, he rested through the sacred hours of the Sabbath day." It goes on into Genesis explaining that in the beginning the Father and the Son had rested upon the Sabbath as well. So here we have Christ dying on the 14th. I hope we agree with that. Christ died on Passover Day according to Exodus 12 and according to the New Testament, which was the 14th of the first month at even. He died during the evening sacrifice, which was always 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, which we have seen the type of hours it was. First, 3, 6, and 9, at the 9th hours. Now, Jesus did not die on the Friday. Jesus died on Preparation Day, according to the biblical calendar of the sanctuary. And we saw in Numbers 28 and Leviticus 23 that the Sabbath is included in the Holy Convocation in the appointed time. And if all of the other Holy Convocation are kept according to the lunisolar biblical calendar, Barley Harvest, the Sabbath cannot be otherwise. You cannot play with this and say, 1 minute you're keeping the Gregorian calendar Saturday, another minute you're keeping the feast according to the lunisolar calendar. It cannot be done. It is not acceptable. So now we have established that Christ died in the 14th of the first month, or Abib, or Nisan. That's those names that they use in the Bible. But Abib is agriculture. It means barley is ripe. Nisan is actually Babylonian. It comes from the book of Esther. After the deportation, they started giving names to the month. You can do your own research on that, and that's where those names comes from. But 14 of the first month would be the way Leviticus mentions it. And Sister White mentions it exactly the same way. She says that after the long day, he rested on the Sabbath day. So which would have been the 15th of the month, which 15th of the month, according to the lunisolar calendar, is always a Sabbath. Now, I'll take you to a few more if you like. All right? Now, listen to this one now. I'm going to chapter 81, The Lord is Risen. "The night of the first day of the week had worn slowly away. The darkest hour, just before daybreak, had come. Christ was still a prisoner in his narrow tomb. The great stone was in its place. The Roman seal was unbroken. The Roman guard were keeping their watch." You see, it was a watch because it was still night. It was still early in the morning. "And there were unseen watchers. Hosts of evil angels were gathered about the place. Had it been possible, the prince of darkness with his apostate army would have kept forever sealed the tomb that held the Son of God." And it goes on. Now, we can see here that the first day of the week is mentioned, which would have been the 16th, which is always the first fruit after unleavened bread, which Leviticus 23 confirms. On the 16th of the first month you shall keep a feast of first fruit, which is the waving of the sheaf of barley, which points to Jesus. Now, let me go to another one. Chapter 82, it says, right at the beginning of the chapter, "The woman who had stood by the cross of Christ waited and watched for the hours of the Sabbath to pass. On the first day of the week, very early, they made their way to the tomb, taking with them precious spice to anoint the Savior's body." Okay, so first day of the week. It doesn't say Monday, it says first day of the week. And we know, again, I like to repeat it, the first day of the week in this case was a Saturday. He died on the Thursday, rested on Friday, and resurrected on a Saturday. Now, let me go to another page, page 794. "On the 6th day of the week, they had seen their master die. On the first day of the next week, they found themselves deprived of his body, and they were accused now of having stolen it away for the sake of deceiving the people." See, she says on the 6th day, on the first day. And how precise can a prophet be? This is the 6th day, and this is the first day. It's perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, another one, chapter 83. "Late in the afternoon of the day of the resurrection, 2 of the disciples were on their way to Emmaus, So late in the afternoon on the day of resurrection. It doesn't say Sunday. Now, it goes on to another page, if you like, page 800. During the journey, the sun had gone down, and before the traveler reached their place of rest, the laborers in the field had left their work. So this is basically talking about Emmaus and when Christ was resurrected and when Christ traveled with them. So that would have been the 16. And it's interesting because it says, during the journey, the sun had gone down, and before the traveler reached their places of rest, the laborers in the field had left their work. You know, there is a quote in Dies Domini, the writing that I was telling you from Ratzinger and from Pope John Paul II, that they said that in the time of the apostle, they kept Sunday. Well, if Christ resurrected on Sunday, why would the laborer be in the field going back to work on that first day of the week that Christ resurrected? And there was no problem, it seems. That's because these people didn't keep Sunday, they kept the Sabbath, the 7th day of the week. The Friday, the 27th, was the day of rest, and the first day was Saturday. All right, that's when you resurrected. Anyways, there is more. You can go to chapter 84, and I have marked them as well. Chapter 85, it talks about the Passover week. There is nowhere where the prophet talks about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is absolutely a Roman, and the Roman were not very much liked by the Jew, and the Jew would not have mingled at that time their calendar with the Roman calendar in order to please the Roman. And Jesus, who is the fulfillment of the Old Testament, definitely died at the right time, rested at the right time, and resurrected at the right time. So, when I've told you about the Grace Amadon collection, I want to tell you what's happening with that collection. There is two problems with that collection. One problem is the crucifixion date. And Grace Amadon tries as much as she can to prove that Christ died on a Friday and resurrected on a Sunday. And Elder Wirtz, which had asked the conference to prepare this committee, is quite upset. And he says that she's trying to put time where there is none, because she's not fair to the datas. The datas is the full moon was a Wednesday. There is no way in a million years that you can make Christ died on the 27th if the full moon was the 25th. And one astronomer from the U.S. Naval Observatory, actually there is a letter, and he says, why are you making him die on the 27th if the 13th was the 25th? He didn't die on the 15th. I don't know if that astronomer was a Christian, but he tells Grace Amadon that she's contradicting herself. And I believe that that's why that collection was put away. The second reason is because of the problem with a 7-day Sabbath falling anywhere, not on Saturday. Andreasen, in a letter in the first part of the manuscript of the Grace Amadon collection, which I have here, Andreasen writes a letter to the committee. He was the theologian of our church at that time. And I must admit, I'm very disappointed because in this letter, Andreasen makes it very clear that it could bring some confusion, and he relates it directly to the 7-day Sabbath. You can read that letter actually on the on Four Angels publication. I hope that you go and visit that website for this information. They are very, very good. And Andreasen then proposes that we do not go with the explanation of the lunisolar calendar to explain 1844, that we go into another direction. And that's one of the reasons I believe too that this study has never really been looked into any further. That's because of those 2 points. The 7-day Sabbath, according to a lunisolar barley harvest law calendar, Mosaic calendar, does not always fall at the same time as the Saturday Sabbath or Saturday Gregorian reckoning Sabbath. It does not. They are 2 different calendars. And the other point is that the resurrection of Christ, unless you can show me, I believe Christ did not resurrect on a Sunday. He resurrected on a Saturday, which has nothing to do with keeping Saturday, but according to a lunisolar calendar, he would have resurrected on the 16th, which would have been the first day of the week, but not necessarily a Sunday. So this is what makes the complicated things, is that people are not accustomed yet to play with the two calendar, and they kind of get confused. The 13th of Nisan is the 25th, the 26th would be the 14th, the 27th would be the 15th, and then he resurrected on the 16th. That's how you have to present it, both always together, so you don't get mixed up and confused and think that this does not make sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, I hope that I make sense. This is kind of interesting for me to present this, and it's very new. And I know for many people, I'm sure and certain they will have to really switch their brain. It's almost like it gives you a surgery of the brain. It was the same for me when I was keeping Sunday. And then I discovered by reading The Great Controversy on my own that Sunday was not the day of the Lord. So then I switched to Saturday. And somebody told me that Christmas and Easter's and New Year's is not biblical. Well, that was another shock. And then I bought these books, and I started realizing that the festival of the Lord in Leviticus 23 have nothing to do whatsoever with the festival of the Catholic Church. I want to talk to you about a festival that is really, really important for the Catholic Church and what it points to. It's actually the festival of Christmas. You know, even in French we say les fêtes. It's the same word, les fêtes, the feast. And Christmas is very, very important in the Catholic Church. And A.T. Jones, in his research, which this book was published in 1891, can you imagine publishing a book of that size in 1891? How long do you think it took him? He didn't have a computer like we have, and definitely not a laptop where you could bring it everywhere. 895 pages. And I read every one of them. I wanted to know what he's talking about, because if in 1891 A.T. Jones wrote such a book, this is a reflection on 1888. I really believe that. Let me show you what he wrote. It's called The Two Republics, and what it is, it's a comparison of the Republic of Rome, fallen, with the Republic of America. A.T. Jones was an American, and he compares the two Republic of Rome and America constantly of what could happen to America. And contrary to other books of A.T. Jones, which I have, Sunday Laws, and I have book on Reformation of A.T. Jones, excellent writer. He's a bit hard to read. He's almost like a lawyer, but he has excellent writing, and I like his books. And this book, contrary to those books, they are not political. This book, the other books are political, I should say, but this book, I was expecting politics, and it's basically all having to do with the Roman and their festivals, and specifically having to do with the worship of the sun. And when you do a research on that, it's very fascinating, because the Roman were very, very high on worship. Their religion and their government was one. It was a church-state government. To be a Roman was your religion. It was not just like you're a citizen. It was your religion. And in Rome, when people would come and live there, if they had any other religion, Jewish, Christian, depending on the emperor of that time, that's what A.T. Jones reports, some of them were tolerant, but some of them were not. And whether you were Christian or Jew or Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim, the Muslim didn't exist maybe so much at that time, but I'm talking about the old religion, they were persecuted. So it is false to think that because people were Christians specifically, they were persecuted by the Roman. All of other religion that did not acknowledge the Roman religion were persecuted. This is under the pagan emperor of Rome. Now, you make a switch to the Roman Catholic Papal Church, and you see the same spirit of intolerance throughout history. For 1260 years of history, we see the intolerance. And I will have a session on showing you in 2008 and 2009 how Protestantism has totally forgotten what she protests for. When I went from, I used to be Catholic for 30 years, when I went from Catholicism to Protestantism, I know why I became a Protestant. But most Protestants have forgotten why they're Protestant. They do not protest anymore. They just go along with what the Catholic Church is presenting, and they think that this is okay. The Catholic Church has changed now. She's much more mild. The Catholic Church does not change. We have changed.